Welcome to I Heart Geek.
And welcome to another episode of I Heart Geek. And we have the air voice over to my left, Robert. Mr. Blythe himself wants to lip sync my intro every time it hurts my feelings. And now he's not even going to talk, which is great for the people that are just listening. We have a fantastic panel.
I'm the visual guy.
Well, if only you had a face for TV, you know. Hey. Oh, wow. We were kind of harsh on each other before this show, so I'm kind of like trying to stop that. I apologize.
I've always said I'm much prettier when you can't see me.
Oh,
I don't agree with that.
Fishing. Okay. Okay, we are talking ancient mythology today. This is what everything in our geek lives is based on, is mythology somehow or the other, some type or the other.
True.
Yeah, before I do my intro, let's talk about who we were brought to you by today. Today we are brought to you by ancient folklore that may or may not have some morality lesson if you look hard enough. I put
really hard in some cases.
Really hard.
Oh, if it has anything to do with Zeus, yeah, he was kind of a butt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Kinda. So was Odin. So was Loki.
Yeah.
This could go on. Anyway, let's talk about the panel. I'm Dub, and I wrote your show today, and I produce and that fun stuff. Since certain people need to get off their butts and start doing the video again, but that's sooner or later he'll do this. And speaking of that guy,
the other guy that does it, he totally picks weird pictures for me, so I look like a psychopath. Like
let's get the thumbnail face.
Down the lowbrow. I'm not gonna make any weird faces today because it's all gonna end up on the internet.
It's on the internets. So
yep.
Yeah. So I'm Dub, and to my left we have our good buddy Blythe. How are you doing, bud?
What's up, everybody? I'm doing good. The reason why I'm not getting off my butt is because I'm always off my butt taking care of this little dingling out in here. He'll be 2 months old.
Oh my God, he's so cute.
2 days from now, on Monday, he will be 2 months old. And oh my gosh, it has been a journey.
It changes your life. That's what we told you when you started.
For sure.
We will have there's a show in there somewhere we'll figure out somewhere. Okay, and directly below me, we have Ms. Geeky Page. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm outstanding. What's new in your life?
Nothing. Nothing really.
That was the most anticlimactic answer you could have possibly given.
I can't even come up with
Thank you for creating content for the show right there. That was awesome.
Right, I'm trying to think of something cool to even lie about. We're in the middle of a pandemic. I watch a lot of TV. Doing a little gaming. That's about the extent. Work and gaming. That's me.
I do have to say this before we get to our last panelist, and I just found this out on Monday when we're recording this, so it'll have been out a week. Umbrella Academy season 2 is going to be out.
Oh, that's right.
Woo! I'm so happy. Oh, I'm
that and The Boys season 2 is coming out soon too.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
So and during their Comic-Con panel, Seth Rogen came up and announced that they were already greenlit for season 3. So super
For The Boys?
For The Boys, yeah.
Nice.
I haven't watched Perry Mason.
I do have to mention within today's theme that season 3 of The Norseman has just come out.
Oh, yep, that came out too.
That's right.
I'm extremely excited to watch it.
Now that show let's get back to that one. Let's introduce you first. But there is stuff to talk about with that show.
There's so much to talk about.
I don't know. Are you still a guest, or are you kind of a semi-permanent panelist at this point? Satomi Hoffman.
Hi. Maybe I'm that friend who keeps coming over and sleeping on the couch, and eventually you start referring to me as your roommate. Have we crossed that line yet?
I think we're getting close. You've been on a lot of episodes.
Woot. I'm so honored.
And you're so
really
far
am.
away.
So far away. Yes, but so close in our hearts.
Yeah, well, you know what?
And am I close in your heart now? All you listeners out there. Sort of like a disease.
That's an ugly sound.
See, it's your fault. You told me to wear my earbuds today.
It's a much better thing. If you guys listened to the last show that she was on, you know why? Because there was those we're talking like, and then she wants. It's always one of those things.
Rock on.
Outstanding. Okay, so let's kind of get into the subject at hand today. Let's kind of discuss mythology. What is your first, I guess, foray into mythology? And I think we all got into it. I think junior high or freshman year, somewhere in there.
Earlier, dude. Mine, 100% Clash of the Titans. The original Mark
Harry
Hamlin. Harry Hamlin, excuse me.
Yep.
And wasn't Burgess Meredith in it?
There was
everyone.
That man has never been young, by the way.
Lawrence, I think Laurence Olivier is
Laurence Olivier was Zeus, and Maggie Smith as Athena.
Nice. So it's the movies that got you the start.
Oh hell yeah! I actually recently rewatched it just for giggles, and it does not stand up, but it's really still just so delightful.
Okay, so what did you think of the remake? Because it lost that cheese factor somewhat, except for the really Vaseline screen that was on Zeus. You know what I'm talking about? They did that lens and you put Vaseline over it or something.
You mean I didn't have allergies?
Oh, so bad. So you weren't a fan of the remake? It's just it had to be that.
No. I'm not even a purist, but for me it was just like it tried too hard. Yeah. It lost the charm. Yeah,
I never had the love for the Clash of the Titans. I didn't. I watched it, but go ahead.
Here's something I always find interesting. So with things like the original Clash of the Titans, people love them because they have that cheese factor. When they were making that movie, do you think they intended it for it to have that cheese factor, or did they want it to be as serious as new Clash of the Titans made itself out to be?
Oh yeah,
they cast freaking Laurence Olivier and Maggie Smith. They were dead serious.
Oh yeah. Well, then they got Ray Harryhausen to do the monsters, and in the and in the creature effects world, Harryhausen is a legend. And so, and if you still look at it, that's one thing I think that does hold up is his creations, the Kraken and especially Medusa and the Pegasus. That's all stop motion Harryhausen animation, and it's amazing stuff. Yeah. The rest of it was just cheesy.
Yes.
Like Jason and the Argonauts.
Bubo!
But the movies are really... Is that where everyone gets their take in, or did you get it from? I started from reading mostly the Greek when I started because it was just more interesting to me for whatever reason. Because I wanted to think I was smart or something. I wasn't, but I thought I was. So I enjoyed reading them before I watched the movies. So my intro was I think probably Prometheus and Icarus flying too close to the sun and Hercules stuff. That was my start with, and that is in my imagination, they're still better than anything they put out on the screen. What's everyone else? Courtney or Blas, where did you guys kind of get your start?
Well, it's probably the same place as Hitomi. It was Clash of the Titans. I like to think of Greek and Roman mythology as everybody's gateway drug to mythology, because I think everybody that's not of a specific culture probably starts with Greek, and if you're Indian, you have the Indian mythology. If you're Native American, you have Native American. So, but I think for us, I think for everybody else, Greek and Roman mythology is kind of like our gateway drug into the rest of mythologies. So,
yeah.
Well, I think there are some that use the gateway of Thor into the Norse as a first.
Well, yeah.
Because of the comic book and the only, not that he really had that much to do with the original. But.
Yeah, I think what Courtney's just saying is that even a lot of us don't realize that there is a lot of that old mythology until you get introduced into like Zeus and Hercules and all that stuff, which is where I got my introduction was Disney's Hercules. Was that cartoon.
You are young.
Yeah. I forget what year was made.
90 something?
Yeah.
It was
mid-90s,
97, and I know that
97.
because me and my wife got bored on our honeymoon at some point, and we went and watched it.
Yeah. So
Cute.
I was 7 years old, and that was my introduction into it. Was that Disney amazing movie? I still holds up to this day. I love watching that movie.
But yeah,
The music is amazing in
yeah.
that one, especially.
Yeah, the music's fantastic.
I think the storytelling with Mythology, the any story that has lasted, they knew how to tell a story. And and it got embellished more and more throughout the generations because someone else told it more interesting and some made it more boring on the way. But that taught us as a civilization, as a human civilization, how to tell a story and how to entertain. And I think that's part of our evolution of why are the arts important to us is because of these. I think we don't have these, we don't have TV.
Well, we believed it when it first was. It wasn't just storytelling when it was first adapted. The old stories of Greek and Roman mythology was their way of explaining why things in the world work. So, like you said, over time, it gets embellished and more gets created from it. But as it wasn't so much entertainment as it was a belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the best way of looking at it is it's a mythology for us now.
Mm-hmm.
When it was created, it was a theology.
It was
a religion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's exactly what Blythe was saying. It was when these were created, whether they be Zeus or Jupiter or Osiris and Isis or whatever, Coyote, any of that stuff, it was people's way of creating reasoning behind stuff that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it before. People have always needed heroes. They've always needed someone to look up to.
No.
Case in point, Hercules and Theseus.
Mm-hmm.
So how far does it have to go from when it was believable to the entertainment value that we see from it now? Does that make any sense? That question?
That's kind of hard to say in our.
I mean, and I'm not asking for an exact time. I'm like, I mean, how many generations is it till it's okay to embellish on what you think is the truth to embellish to entertain?
Well, again, that's hard to say because that would mean that in our current mindset, we would have to believe that a man threw lightning bolts from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point was it actually believable?
Well, I think they crossed into entertainment very, very quickly. I mean, if you look at any culture in general, we have our beliefs, but we still will turn a current belief into entertainment. Mm-hmm. How many movies about the Bible have we seen? How many, how many movies about any belief system? And I was mentioning to the guys right before we started recording, I actually just sheer happenstance ended up watching the National Theatre of Greece's production of Aeschylus's The Persians, which is the oldest recorded play, period, from like 472. And I mean, these guys were already presenting plays at the birth of theater as entertainment. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was partly to support everybody's beliefs, but it was also 100% definitely to entertain.
Yeah.
So I think they go hand in hand. I don't think it was a transition. I think it was like, well, here we are. Let's have some fun.
In the Nordic culture, there was guys that would travel around the entire country, and they would just stop from village to village, and they would tell these fantastic stories. Some of them they believed and kept going, and some they didn't, and depending on the storyteller. And as long as that person was an entertaining storyteller, they got food, they got lodging,
right,
by retelling these stories.
Yeah,
and the Nordic stuff anyway. I can't speak for all mythologies. It wasn't necessarily a belief system. It was yes, this might be true, but it doesn't really affect our day to day. So let's entertain this and let's have fun. Let's make these the gods in Midgard and Asgard as human as possible, so that it's just stories about us.
And that was the same case with the Greeks as well.
Greeks were worse than
Greeks
Romans
and
on that.
Well, yeah.
Same.
The Greeks, they had pot bellies, and the Romans, they were six packs.
Same
Right.
for the
That's a good way of putting it, I think.
same for the Hawaiians.
Yeah.
Polynesian myth is very much. I mean, the god Lono, who is the god of the sea, started as a chief.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, he's a god, but he's also just a regular old chief.
yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, let's bring it up to this question then, because I think we all definitely have our point of view on what we like as far as the mythologies go. As a, I guess, as from a country of origin, where is your favorite mythology from? I'm not talking the original stories, but as a whole, and why is that your favorite? Let's start with Blythe. What's your favorite country of origin for mythology, and why?
Oh, that's a hard one. I think like earlier when I was a kid, it was Greek, just because of my connection with Hercules, the Disney show. But I think as I get older and you kind of read more about it and read more of the story, I would say Japan, probably.
Really?
Yeah. Just a lot of very cool just ways to see the world and different stories, which I'll get into my top 5 because I have a couple that have kind of like we said have been influenced in entertainment that you wouldn't necessarily know. You wouldn't even think to know that was some sort of Japanese mythology, but it's there, and the stories are super deep into it.
Yeah. So tell me, what about you?
Well, I would actually agree with Blythe there. It's funny. I was actually going to put a Japanese story in my top 5, but I refrained because we discussed time frame, and I didn't know if it was old enough for what we were looking at. But I first of all, I'm half Japanese for our listeners out there, so I do feel a deep connection to it. I love their very much like the Native Americans, that connection to nature, that deep connection to nature, and giving each aspect of nature, a personality and an opinion. My inroad was definitely Greek. And then I also love Egyptian mythology. Yeah. It's just another culture that I've always been drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, with the Japanese one, I think it's actually a really interesting factoid, I guess. The original story of Cinderella was told as a Japanese mythology with the fish. And
from what I understood, it was like Chinese.
Chinese. Okay,
it's
I
Chinese.
apologize.
Yeah.
But it was, I guess, 2,000 years before Cinderella.
Yep.
So, yes, every mythology borrows, and it's the way they tell a story, honestly. What about you, Courtney? I'm guessing it's going to be all Hawaiian for some reason.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I love Hawaiian now. Polynesian myth is really interesting, and it's not something that's been explored a lot outside of Polynesia. But I also love Egyptian myth. I really
dark.
I really dug Egyptian myth when I was a kid. Like there was a brief time when I wanted to be an Egyptologist. I blame Indiana Jones for that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so I learned everything I possibly could about Egyptian mythology, and there's some of it's on my top 5 today. So, yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one, kitty cat. If I had to pick one, it would be Egyptian mythology, but I don't like to pick just one.
Fair enough.
So many interesting.
No, my favorite now is completely different from when I grew up. When I grew up, I liked the Greek because it was simple. It was, you get it. I hated the Roman because it was like, okay, they're just copying the Greek, and I just don't like the stories as much. These gods and goddesses aren't as relatable. And I hated Nordic mythology because I'm like, this is confusing. And now I'm older, and my favorite is Nordic mythology because, wow, this is confusing. And Greek feels like simple fairy tales
Greek
for me. There's a couple stories that I really like, and I'm not like harping on anything, but it's funny how as you get older, your perspective changes on what you like on it.
Well, and I think in some terms too, what we learned as a kid for certain mythologies isn't the whole story. Like Medusa, we all know the story of Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
And the common misconception is that he was just awful Gorgon who had snakes in her head and turned men to stone. What they don't teach you in school that you have to find out for you later is she wasn't like that when she started out. She was a beautiful woman who was, something bad happened to her that I cannot say in a family friendly, but something bad happened to her which was not her fault. And she was cursed by the goddess whose temple she was in when that terrible thing happened.
Yeah.
Not the person who did the terrible thing to her. She was cursed. And that's why she turns men to stone. It's retaliation for what was done to her.
Same
It's
thing.
actually-
No, go ahead, Stone.
I was just going to say it's actually one of the reasons, even though there are still Greek tales that I love, that I pulled away from a lot of Greek mythology because a lot of it just seemed really misogynistic. Let's start there, and just kind of a little nasty. Like, you know, I like my mythology to speak of where we could go, where we could be, rather than, you know, people suck and so do the gods.
Well, it's depending on which mythology, most of the gods do suck. They are.
Yeah, they kind of do.
They're buttholes. I mean,
Yes.
I did some examples earlier, but and say, you know, and I haven't studied all world mythology, but like even I find gods interesting when they are, you don't know if they're good or they're bad. Loki, for instance, he is absolute garbage, but he was not looked at in that culture as a piece of garbage. He was looked at as, he's a guy that gets in trouble and he does a lot of good, and we wouldn't keep him around if he didn't do all this good, but he can definitely cause trouble from time to time.
I think
He's a god of mischief, and mischief
he's a
doesn't necessarily, he doesn't mean that you're bad. It just means that you're wily.
Yeah. And then there's Anansi from African mythology.
Yeah, not see the spider.
Yeah, which I mean, definitely not a good role model for anything.
He's a trickster too, though. I mean, there's a trickster god in almost every mythology.
culture.
I mean, like in Native American, we have Coyote.
Mhm.
Coyote's a trickster god. It's the same thing you say with Loki, and Nancy fits that bill too. It's like you do some good, but you also do some bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's like both. Those trickster gods kind of straddle both sides of the equation, so to speak.
Mhm.
They're chaos elements.
No.
I think that's, I don't know that they were looked at the same way. I think that with creative license in a couple of generations, I think that's when they changed into more of a black and white instead of a shade of gray.
Yeah.
You know, because why would you, as part of your religion, want to make this character that's above you still, but if you look at Loki in our mindset, he's evil. You know, you look at Anansi, he's going to start war. He's going to be evil. But why would you make that part of your belief system if there's not that shade of gray in there? Which I think is kind of interesting. That's with this older mythology, I always find interesting is, you know, the shades of gray that are important. And it does matter what shade of gray you are.
Well, it's even if you look at, and I'm probably going to mess up specifically which part of Islam focuses on this, but it's even the concept of the devil. Instead of just seeing him as a purely evil creature, instead of being cast out of heaven, he loved God so much that he took on the job of being away from God so that he could come and test humanity. Mm-hmm. So, you know, these are, I think it's a little bit childlike how we tend to want our myth to be. Yeah. We want the black hats and the white hats. And I think if you look at ancient mythology like we are today, it's much more complex.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, even the stories, and we'll get into this next point in a second, but these stories, the longer they go, the more that it's that story that is the interesting part. I mean, when did we all learn about it for the first time? In junior high. And that's when yes, your child, you got kind of a childlike thought still.
Still
You're a little bit
childlike, yeah.
adult,
True.
you're still a little bit of a child. So
But that's still
you still
you.
need that connection. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You still need that connection to good and evil. And that's why these stories are, every comic book we've ever read, every movie we've ever watched is in some form based on these old mythologies. All of them.
Yeah.
So let's actually hit this next point that I want to talk about. Let's see, what did I say on this? Okay, let's talk about some of the newer movies that are blatant ripoffs of ancient mythology. First one that came to mind was like Percy Jackson with the books. Movies aren't as good, but the books are really good. But they did a really good job of making a modern time viewing of ancient mythology. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that in particular, or other ones that you guys have that are interesting to you.
I think that those are, so when you get into that kind of stuff, those are really cool because it tells you a like more modern perspective on those old mythologies. Like if you take those old characters and you put them in our today's society with today, the things that are going on, how would they react? Just kind of like, I'm going to get the name wrong. I think American Gods, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of those perfect shows that takes everything from all sorts of cultures, not just one specifically, and puts them in the now and puts those characters or those gods in a situation where they used to be praised and looked on as a god, but now they've fallen off of now their entertainment value, and they're aware of it.
Yeah.
Another show
It
that does it
addresses it,
too is Supernatural. Supernatural has a whole episode where, because they primarily are with like God and Satan and all things, but they have a whole episode where Odin shows up and all these different characters throughout all different types of mythology, to where they put it that these characters exist within this universe. And I think that's where I like to see that's a cool way of bringing this old mythology back and kind of giving it a modern spin on it.
Yeah. I'm going to say the new Penny Dreadful, not the original series, the newest one, the City of Angels. And it doesn't rip off mythology, but it draws on a lot of the Chicano mythology. So you've got Santa Muerta, she's death. And like these are legitimately characters that are worshipped to this day and are deified to this day. And but they've created a secondary character, which is her sister, which is not a real character. But they draw on like Dia de los Muertos, and so they draw very heavily on Chicano myth and mythos to tell this story set in 1940 something or 1938 Los Angeles. Yeah. And so it's not ripping it off, but it's like, let's borrow from this and insert it into this world. So I kind of dig that kind of stuff.
Well, with what you're saying there was a wrestling promotion called Lucha Underground, and it was a Mexican soap opera that they did in English, and it's wrestling. I mean, it's hard to explain, but that was all based on, I know more about, Hispanic mythology from that than I learned anywhere else, because I have respect for that, because you do learn about other cultures that way. Whether or not that's the belief system now, there's something to be learned from the mythology, especially when brought to modern times. And they did a great job of, they didn't quote unquote Americanize it. I mean, yes, it's in English, so that I can understand it because I speak zero Spanish. But at the same time, it wasn't like WWE'd up. It was its own thing, and it was very lucha libre and had that tradition and had the mythology there. They had Muertos. I forgot how to say all that, but
Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah, she was the goddess of death.
Santa Muerta.
Yeah, and she was the goddess of death on that show.
What it is.
Yeah, and I think it's a really good way of being able to learn other people's cultures, and that's why I don't like the stealing from other people's culture. No, that's how you learn from other people's cultures, is to be immersed in that. And I think it's interesting. Did you have one, Satomi?
I actually do. It's funny. I had one in particular, and then another one really popped to mind. The one in particular, it's a little subtler, but it's the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, which draws heavily from Greek mythology.
The
if you look at
original does more blatantly
as well. Yes. Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But then if we want to pull it away from Greek mythology, Miyazaki films, man.
Mhm.
Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, all of that
Oh,
draws
yeah, I forgot about
heavily on Japanese mythology.
And even to a certain extent, you could say Star Trek, because you have
The Great
you
Bird.
have the Vulcans and you have the Romulans, and they are literally a take on the two brothers Romulus and Remus. That's where Romulus gets its name, from the Greek god Romulus, whose brother was Remus, which is the Vulcan. So it's like I'm not even going to explain the Vulcans and the Romulans because everybody on this podcast should know. But yeah, I mean that pulls
elitist.
Right, you should know. You should be a Star Trek dork. But yeah, I mean even that pulls in, and then there's the Orion girls in I mean, their Star Trek even draws on the mythology.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's pervasive.
Where would you guys say Star Wars gets their mythology from? Because he borrows from a lot of places.
He borrows from Kurosawa films.
But there's a lot of mythologies in there. There is Buddhist mythology. There is definite. There's some Greek. There's some Roman in there. So. Yeah, do you guys have any like places that yes, the Kurosawa
the
films?
Force is magic.
It could be magic. It could
the
be
Jedis can be considered.
It's also
Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah. It's very subject to interpretation.
It's also and yin yang.
Yeah.
Dark side.
It's man versus man and man versus evil.
Yeah.
Which is basically what all mythology is man versus man versus God. God becomes man. Storytelling.
Dinosaurs eat man. Woman inherits the earth. I'm just going to quote a different movie after
That's how it should be.
Oh, before we go to another topic, I just want to mention one more that I love from entertainment. That's the God of War video game series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Such a great.
You learn a lot from those, honestly. Yeah.
Such a great series, and with this newest one that they just did where they dived into Norse mythology, it's super cool to see what they're doing, and the rumor on the street is that the next game will be diving into either continuing off of the Norse, and then the game after that will be diving into the Egyptian mythology.
Oh, nice.
So what looks like they're going to do is start taking Kratos through all these different types of mythology throughout human history, which I'm super excited for.
They are printing money at this point, so they probably should. But again, let's hit this last final shout out to people that are bringing mythology to modern, and that would be Marvel with Thor. I mean,
of course,
nobody would know Norse mythology if we had not seen Thor first.
Yeah.
And I mean, just so many things with that. The Rainbow Road and the Bifrost. The Asgard, Midgard, the
9 realms.
The 9 realms.
Yggdrasil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much they've taken and they've made their own mythology. But they also haven't been disrespectful, I don't think, to the original material at all.
I would say to a certain extent, Wonder Woman brought Greek mythology.
Yes,
true.
Very much. Did she do Greek or was it more Roman?
She's Greek.
Was it?
Amazons are Greek.
Okay.
And she's the daughter. She's the daughter of Zeus. Well, now she's the daughter of Zeus. She wasn't before, but now she's the daughter of Zeus. But
is that canon now that she is the daughter? I thought the whole thing was that she thought she was the daughter of Zeus, and then
no, she is the daughter of Zeus.
And there was a time she was the god of, or the daughter of.
She's god of war.
Yeah, and then then she was the daughter of, whoever was that controlled hell.
Hades.
Hades.
Hades. She was the daughter of Hades for a while. So
New 52 is what made her the daughter of Zeus, like the legitimate daughter of Zeus, and
Does
then
that count? Does New 52 count?
yeah,
Oh,
but they
stop
put
it.
it in the movie,
Ugh.
so it's kind of
This went high geek at this point.
yeah, it's in the movie now, so I'm assuming they consider it canon at this point in time.
Yeah.
Okay, so we all seem like we know a bit about mythology from, that isn't the commonplace. What story or culture would you like to see brought next to the modern era with mythology to retell?
Pele's in the corner.
Huh?
I forgot I had Tikal up there. Sorry, since we're talking about mythology.
It's all good. So who what would you like to see? What story or type of mythology would you like to be brought up next into the world? Let's start with you, Satomi, on that one.
I'd like to see some more Native American mythology. I mean, there's such a rich history there. So ancient. And honestly, all we've had so far are things like Disney's Pocahontas, or Dances with Wolves, which, in mainstream culture, it's not mythology. It's a story of the culture. I mean, of the peoples. But I would love to see a treatment of their, because they have some amazing stories, like the Menominee tribe in Wisconsin, which I've always been fascinated by, and how they can trace their roots to the mouth of the river. So there's some really beautiful stuff to be mined there. So I'd love to see that happen.
Nice. Blythe, what about you?
This one's a hard one. I'm trying to think of what.
You could use more than one if you want, but
yeah,
I know we all have a lot of interest in things that aren't just the modern. What we have.
Kind of when I was talking about before of what my favorite ones, I'd like to see more like Japanese-based mythology, like something that's really told from like a Japanese story. Like I said, there's always in different types of entertainment, you have little things that are like picked here from there, but I'd like to see like a true like story told from the Japanese mythology.
Now, I've talked about this probably at least every other episode. The Fables comic book series, there are some fables that are told through the Japanese.
Yeah.
That are told literally, and they have stuff through the Arabic, and I mean the whole world. They bring in all these other folklores, and if you do want to go check some of those out, I will find which stories they have. But there are some stuff that is definitely from the Japanese mythology that you probably don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool to see.
So that would be check them out if you wanted to go there a little bit. Just a little. Always got to plug Fables because it's the greatest story ever.
You love it.
My favorite comic book ever. I think. I think it's taken over. Yeah, I think so. Okay,
it might
Courtney,
be.
what about you?
I would like to see Aztec and Mayan because we don't see a lot of that, and they have some amazing gods and goddesses that are just like you have Quetzalcoatl. I mean, it's just come on.
Courtney, we got the movie 2012.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that.
But aren't they very, 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 very similar to the Greek? I haven't studied a lot of that, to be honest.
Well, to be honest, all mythologies are attached to each other. So if you do like a deep dive,
and I'm just talking on the surface.
Everybody's related, but no, I mean, there are a lot of cool and different stories and different types of gods. Like there's a winged serpent in Aztec, and I mean it'd be interesting to explore because we haven't seen it very much.
Yeah.
Like we rarely see that kind of stuff. Like because to be honest, we see a lot of Greek and Roman mythology throughout the entertainment world. We don't see a lot of anything else.
Yeah.
Unless you go beyond the English-speaking world's offerings.
Yeah.
And then you can find some really cool stuff.
Or it's like a niche character, like Diablo in Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean...
Token.
I don't want to say token, though, because I feel like you have to get people so that they have a point of reference before you can go into a deep dive on things. For instance, let's go back to Thor. Nobody would give a crap in this entire country. Nobody would give a crap about that mythology if we hadn't as kids had that entrance in with Thor first. I think you have to have a point of reference. I said, I think so I'm trying to figure out my words that I want to say here because I don't want this to come off like I think it might. Forgive me if it does, but I think it's important to. I don't know how to say this without being.
I think you're proving my point, though.
Mm-hmm. I think that we
you
want
have to
hear
be
all
given
these places,
it,
but
you have we just haven't yet.
But you have to start with small doses on things.
Yeah, but I mean, prior to Thor, prior to Thor, and I completely agree with you. I think a lot of people's gateway into Thor was the comic book Thor or the movies Thor.
It was a spot in.
Yeah, I totally get that.
He was a minor character to start.
I think what has to happen though is that has to happen for all those other fun mythologies that are out there. So like we can talk. We just mentioned Moana. Moana is the same way. How many people's indoctrination into Polynesian myth now comes from Moana?
Yeah. See, and I was going to bring that up. I was going to bring that up too. Moana was great because it wasn't just a niche character in a broader universe. Moana came out and it was its own movie. It was its own movie based on Polynesian lore, and it did amazing because it was great storytelling, and because from what I've seen, and you may disagree with this, Courtney, but it looked like Disney did their homework. From all the behind the scenes stuff that I saw, they had actual Polynesian people come in and help them storyboard and tell about these characters and really dive into the lore of this mythology. So I don't think it necessarily has to be a singular character. I think as long as you take the time to really do your research and tell a story, you can release whatever content about whatever mythology, and it can really reach an audience of people, because Moana was just a fantastic movie.
Well, this is the Marvel example. Why did their films do so well while DC didn't? They took the time, they introduced the character
one at a time,
and you really got to enjoy that universe and build the universe, instead of, okay, we're going to drop everything on you at once.
Yep.
And that's the difference between Avengers and Justice League.
Yeah.
And they're both fantastic stories, but if you've given people a little bit at a time, I think a problem with our society is, okay, well, I have this thing that I want everybody to know everything about right now. I think that there's just a slow build to things that, as a society, we need. Does that make sense? And that's what I was trying to say earlier, but I figured out how to say
it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just don't think it's an absolute.
Yeah. No, there's no such thing as absolutes.
No, there's not.
We're all shades of gray.
All of us. We're 4 shades of gray.
I'm the whitest shade right here.
I'm pretty pasty.
Okay, I'm going to represent the shades right now.
Oh.
But I mean, Bly's Moana is a great example, though, of just going here. There you go.
Have a little bit of it.
Yeah, and even there was some controversy.
Yeah.
There were people who did take offense at how some of the movie was presented, particularly the character of Maui. But you aren't going to make everybody happy.
Well, and I mean, on the side of that, speaking to that, the Maui that's in Moana is not the Hawaiian version of Maui. That Maui is the Maori version of Maui. Right. And like you have Te Kā and Te Whiri. You have the 2 main goddesses in Moana. In Hawaiian myth, in Moana they're one. They're 2 different sides of one goddess, of Te Whiri. In Hawaiian myth, those are 2 separate goddesses with entirely different names. And they serve entirely different purposes. So I mean, it's that it's like what Dub was saying with Thor. It gives you a little taste of it, so you can go check out the rest if you want to.
And that's when more movies get made because people are interested.
Yeah,
and
they
yes, it may
want
take
Okay,
15,
that's
20
valid.
years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I know this is
I got you.
This is what we try to avoid on the show. But I think
we got you, Dub.
It's an important topic
We
that
got
I
you.
think is important. I do. You know, I say I love learning about this stuff, but I also don't want to be dropped into the deep end of the pool. I want to be able to wade in. I'm like, you know what? This one isn't for me. Let's try a different one. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that's not for me either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
No, not
another
at
thing
all.
that this is the geek world, guys. Some of you are Star Wars, some of you are Star Trek. Very few of us are both. I'm both, but that's most people
I'm both.
want one or the other.
So tell me, didn't you used to work at the Star Trek Experience?
No, I actually got offered a job there, and they couldn't accommodate my schedule. I would have been a great officer. I'm just saying.
We have had 4 people on the show that have been in that.
Oh, I bet.
You know what? Let's pay the bills for a second. Before we do our Redbubble stuff in Amazon. So tell me, what do you got to plug? What do you got going on? Then we're going to go to the main event.
Well, today I want to plug a charity that is near and dear to my heart and one that I'm deeply involved with called Broadway Hearts. You can check us out at broadwayhearts.org. We started out as a collection of Broadway performers who would go to local children's hospitals, Ronald McDonald House, and do sing-alongs with the kids. So we're not singing at them. We are literally singing with them. And we are actually, right before all of this craziness happened, we were on the cusp of introducing our scholarship program, which offers a year of lessons in any art form that a child wants once they are released from the hospital. And we give them the supplies to continue so that they can have an easier transition as they head back out into daily life.
That's awesome.
So,
that's amazing.
Thanks, man.
This
will be a good one.
This will be in the show notes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Send us a link, Satomi.
Just
so
like
we
the
can
other
put that
stuff
down there.
that
Joe got
Bryce
it.
is going to talk about, because he's become the commercial guy. He does it so well.
Make him earn his keep,
Talk
boss.
about some Red Bull and some Amazon. Redbubble and some Amazon. Red Bull, you do not get that for free. You owe me that.
Clearly somebody's had a little bit too much Red Bull.
Red Bull, if you want to put a sponsor that reach out,
We would take that.
all over. I'll put it over every single one of our faces.
I will walk around with this on my forehead.
I will have wings. I will walk around with wings. I'm just saying.
Now, if you're not going to get the sponsorship, then you're merely referring the last unicorn. And continue.
There we go.
So yeah, guys, if you go down in the show notes below, we will have a link to our Redbubble page where you can pick up awesome things like this cool Hal t-shirt, as well as some prints like I have above my head here. There's actually like 64 items that you can pick up on Redbubble, from stickers to clocks to shower curtains, duvet colors, anything that you could think of. Really, you can pick it up on Redbubble with our logo on it. We have 3
Redbubble.
We have 3 Redbubble.
We're having one of those.
Did I say Redbubble?
You did.
Oh, jeez Louise. Redbubble.
We're all thinking about it now.
We have 3 designs available. We have the HAL logo, as you see behind me. We have the one with the website across the bottom, and we have the Keep On Geekin' On logo as well. So definitely check those up. Redbubble.com, search I Heart Geek Show, and it'll pop up right there, as well as we have the link down below. Another way that you guys can support the show is by our Amazon affiliate link. Really easy to use. Links down in the description below.
Clear
if you
your
just click
cookies.
on, clear your cookies. If you click on that link, it'll bring you to Amazon.com and then purchase whatever you would purchase normally. It gives us a little bit of a kickback that we put 100% into the show.
And just so everyone is aware, next month, start thinking about it. If you want to start supporting the show in a different way, where by next month we should have our Patreon up. So if you would like to support us in a different way and help us out with the production costs, because they are a lot. None of us are making no money. I'll put it that way.
No.
So, and thank you everyone so much for supporting us. Listener feedback, I put it out too late, so we didn't get that much. So we're going to do that next time. And let's move on to the main event.
Now it's time for the main event.
Okay, so this is our main event today. For our main event, we did our top 5. I know, we never do top 5s ever. But yeah. So we're doing our top 5 favorite mythology tales or mythological tales. Mythological, right? I said that right.
Either way.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sure. It's from a different country if you think I said it wrong. So I'm going to start with my number 5, and my number 5 is Kronos Eats His Children. Now, very interesting tale because Kronos originally killed his father for killing all his children, and Kronos survived, and then they had the new gods, and then he decided he didn't want to give up his position of power, so he started to eat his children.
Wasn't he told by someone?
Yeah, they would take
that
over.
One of your children would take over.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why he started eating everybody.
Yeah. And then I guess it was in his leg or something that one of them survived. But I'm like, I think it's the ultimate tale of hypocrisy.
It was Zeus. Zeus burst out of his stomach, didn't he?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I remember
it's out of his thigh.
You might be right. Yeah. I might be incorrect.
That's not how your digestive tract works.
It's not.
Go into your thigh.
It's a
silly Kronos.
It's a very long string. You don't want to pull it at anything on these. And I know it's such a ridiculous sounding tale, but I love the hypocrisy that he fought so that him and his family could survive, and from his father, and then he goes and turns into the exact same thing. And Zeus wasn't too much better, honestly, after he did it too. I don't know if he ate his children, but he kind of left them a lot of single mothers out there.
He did some non-family friendly things. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, a lot of single mothers out there. Okay, so let's go with Courtney. What is your number 5?
Osiris's death and his transition to the god of the underworld.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
The family-friendly version is
Please.
Osiris and Isis ostensibly are like the Zeus and Hera of the Egyptian pantheon. They were husband and wife, and his brother Seth. It depends on what you read.
Cool.
But Seth, he killed Osiris and chopped him up into little pieces and spread them all over the place.
Yummy.
And in order to give him proper burial, Isis had to find all the pieces. So she found all the pieces except for one. Then she eventually found that one and did what needed to be done to revive him, but he never fully came back. He's basically the mummy Osiris. And so then he became the guardian of the underworld. And so when you died, you met Osiris, and he weighed your heart against a feather, and if your heart was lighter than the feather, you got to go move on. If
it was
not,
a heavy feather.
well, it just meant that your heart was pure and true.
Nice.
So
very good. So Tomi?
Mine is Ameno Uzume, and she is a. This is the one I decided to put her back in because we were talking Japanese mythology as well. She's the Japanese goddess of the dawn. Okay. And she's also sort of the mother of the performing arts in Japanese culture. And she was known to be funny. She would take off her clothes and shake it like your mother make it to make people laugh.
Okay.
Yes. Well,
Doug perked up real quick.
So the story goes is that she was the handmaiden of Amaterasu, which I hope I'm Amaterasu, excuse me, who's the goddess of the sun. And that goddess was just having like a bad hair day or something and put herself in a cave and shut a rock. And so Ameno Uzume went out and danced and took off her clothes and made everybody laugh. And the sun goddess was having some serious FOMO. So she decided to pop open that door and come out and see what all the fuss was about. And then everybody ran in and shut the door so that she had to stay out. So she brought the sun back.
Aw.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
I like that.
Okay, so now, as we sometimes have on the show, we got technical difficulty happening here. So we got Mr. Blythe is going to do his whole top 5 list in one shot. So
Yeah.
I
Okay.
apologize for this, but
Don't throw away your shot, Blythe.
Yep. Sorry,
Not one
guys.
shot.
Not so much technical as it is little human issues going on. So, yeah,
Baby
I'll
okay.
do my top 5 right now, and then I'll let you guys go to finish up. But my number 5 was the Thunderbird from Native American lore. Believed to be a giant bird that would fly across the sky. The flapping of his wings would be the thunder, and the streak of his beak, the lightning. Just an awesome creature of mythology that we've picked up in modern times, as you see in things like Pokemon and the Thunderbirds that
Fly?
Yes.
The jet team?
Yes, the jet team. That's what I was going to say, and I was like, I'm sure there's a more technical word for what they do.
The aerial acrobatic team.
There you go. So just a very, very cool just creature of mythology. My number 4 was Pandora's Box, the story of how evil came into our world. That a box was, and W may know more like details into the story than I'm about to explain, but basically box that someone could not help but open up, and it released all of the evil into the world.
It's temptation, or it's the first tree of life, tree of knowledge of good and evil, basically.
My 3rd is Ra, the god of the sun. He's the god that you see with the head of a hawk in all the Egyptian hieroglyphics. But his story was that every day he would streak across the sky, and in the middle of the day he would battle I believe it was a serpent. And that was his day to day. He would streak across the sky, battle a serpent, and by the end of his run, the nighttime, he would be eaten by a sky goddess.
Nice.
And then, so my last number 2, and as a child of the 90s, I had to do both of them being Pokemon, and both coming from Japanese lore. And my number 2 is the Baku, which would be Drowsy for all you Pokemon fans out there. And basically,
Just Snorlax?
No, not
Okay.
a Snorlax. He's a Drowsy.
That was my one that I knew.
He basically was created. The Baku was created from all the leftover parts when the Japanese gods were creating animals. He was created from all the leftover parts of those animals, and basically he would travel around and eat the nightmares of children. So he would travel around, eat the nightmares of children, and then they would be left with the good dreams and hopes that they would have in their lives. But
he's a dream catcher.
There's always a dark tide to most of these stories. And basically, if the Baku was still hungry after eating the nightmares of the children, he would also eat their good dreams and their hopes.
At least he didn't eat the children.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my last one, my number 1, it was such a cool story when I found out about years ago. There's a Pokemon called Sneasel, and it looks like this little weasel with like these claws and with these feathers coming off him. And basically the story behind it is the original animal was called a Kama Itachi, I believe is how you pronounce it. But basically they hunted in packs of 3s, and this would be some kind of like the step on a crack and break your mama's back type thing. When you would trip, they would say that it was these 3 animals that moved so fast that your eye couldn't see it. The first one would trip you. The second one would rip the flesh off of your legs. And then the third one would heal you. So in the flash of a second, these little weasels would come up, take the flesh off your legs, because that's what they would eat, and then they would be gone. They'd heal you and leave, and all you were left with was the sensation of that you tripped.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for condensing that much into that little amount of time, bud. Go take care of your baby. We love you, and keep on geeking on, bud.
All right, guys. Keep on geeking on.
Bye,
I'll see y'all
guys.
next time. Bye, guys.
Whoa, the screen just got weird now, man. It's like way too much of me on the screen.
There's never enough. There's never enough, Doug.
Oh, trust me, there's plenty. 300 episodes in, yeah, there's plenty. Okay, so let's go with my number 4, and that is going to be Odin steals the mead of poetry. If you've ever heard this story, Odin's a butthole, and he's a liar, and he had to go through a lot of I'm condensing the story. He had to go through a lot of trials and tricks because there was a mead that if you drank it, everything you said would be the most beautiful poetry in the world. And he goes and tricks this woman that's been guarding it for 1,000 years. And well, of course he wins, but then he also has created bad poetry because he turns himself into a bird while he's trying to escape. And he's drinking all of this mead. And well, as you're flying and, you have tankards and tankards of meat inside you, some of it has to escape. And it gets dropped off. It's dropped off. It gets dropped off all over Midgard. That is, and whoever that fell upon, that's where bad poetry comes from. So I think all the junior hires get that.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
There's actually a really great telling of this if you read Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. This is definitely the very, very, very shortened version. But look into this story, and it is hilarious because Odin is just being at his Loki Odin-y worst. So it's definitely worth checking out.
That's hilarious.
I don't remember who I had next. I had Courtney going next.
I don't think I'm...
Okay,
Pick
Courtney,
one.
you're next. Number 4.
Oh, okay. Mine is a Chinese myth, and it's the Monkey King, who's Sun Wukong. I know I didn't say that right, so any of our Chinese listeners out there, I apologize. But he wreaks havoc in the kingdom of heaven.
He said
yeah, I took a mythology class in college not too long ago, and we had to read the Monkey's Tales, and they are just utterly delightful. He's this trickster kind of troublemaker god, but he gets into heaven by default because he tricks his way in, and he drives the great emperor who's runs heaven. He drives him bonkers. And there's a series of movies that you can watch on Netflix that are all the Monkey King and all of his tales and his journeys. The first one is really fun. It's cheesy because the CGI is bad, but the guy
Escape from New York bad?
Yeah. The guy who plays the Monkey King, Sun Wukong, he's a very well respected Chinese performer. If you don't mind reading the subtitles, it's just delightful. But he basically, the Monkey King, Monkey goes into heaven, and the one that I love is where he's supposed to be guarding this great orchard that no one is allowed. It's like the tree of knowledge. They're like the tree of knowledge. There's peaches basically. And he's not supposed to let anybody in. And of course he lets everybody in, and they eat all of the emperor's peaches. And so it's so
okay. The Pixie song "This Monkey's Gone to Heaven" now makes sense.
That's probably where it's come from. Yeah, from Monkey.
Gone to heaven. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So tell me, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is the myth of Courtney and Philomela. And this is sort of like, women are powerful women story, but it kind of stinks too. They were sisters, and Courtney married King Theseus. And then King Theseus decided that he also wanted Philomela, and did some things that were not good, not nice, and then didn't want her to tell anybody. So I don't know, can I say this?
I'll edit it. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. He cut out her tongue so she wouldn't tell anybody.
Yeah, you can say that.
Okay, I wasn't sure. And so she wove a tapestry to be able to tell her sister, what happened. And in revenge, Courtney by this point had kids with Theseus, and they killed their son and fed him to Theseus. And so Theseus was out for his own revenge, and the gods felt so badly about everything that had happened that they turned them into birds. So nice. I did the play in college, and the story just sort of haunted me and sort of stuck with me. I think it was the first time that I was really dealing with very, very adult themes. Mm-hmm. So, just count on me to bring down the mood right here. No,
well,
there you go.
I've got to bring it right back into the weird now.
Okay.
My number 3 is Ragnarok. I'm not going to go too deep into this one because it's either has happened or it's going to happen. It's either the beginning of time or the end of time. We don't really know. If the wolf exists or not, that's a matter of speculation. And I love the ultimate vague feel that they did with this, that no matter where you are, you can look at it and it can mean whatever you want it to mean. I'm not talking about the movies. I'm talking read the actual story of Ragnarok. It's fascinating with the way it's either the beginning of time or the end of time, and you don't know. And the people don't know that are reading it. So, and the Norse people didn't know, and that was part of that, and that was a big part of their belief system. Ragnarok, we're either waiting for it or it's already happened. We're not sure. So it's absolutely really a fascinating. I just, there's something about the vagueness of it that really always just spoke to me.
I was about to say that's kind of cool as a culture that they're like, we don't know, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's certain other religions that do that, but we don't do that on the show. But I'm going to say it later because it's really interesting.
Okay.
Oh, she just give me that look. Courtney, what's your number 3, dear?
Maui lassos the sun.
Okay.
Maui the demigod, the one from Moana.
Also,
the days would go by too fast, and no one would be able to get all of their work done that they needed to do, especially Maui's mother, Hina. So he climbed to the top of the mountain of the sun, and he threw a giant lasso up, and he lassoed the sun, and basically demanded that the sun slow down so that everybody can get everything done. And the sun said, okay.
As you do.
Yeah. So tell me, what's your number 3?
Oh,
2, 3.
My number 3 actually was Osiris and Isis as well. So I'm gonna pop in. That's okay. I'm gonna pop in a different one that I think at 2,000 years it's old enough.
Spoilers.
Is the Swedish right there?
The Swedish chef?
It's the Swedish. Okay, we're going to talk like this now. It's the Brickhurst. This is a very scary. So sorry,
don't
that's
do that. I'm already
inappropriate. Never mind. No, you know what? I just had a flashback of my dad because my dad used to do an impersonation of the Swedish chef, and he would actually call me and leave messages in full Swedish chef, like 5-minute messages.
That's
in
the kind
that
of
voice.
Stuff
so.
My dad does.
Yeah. We love dad
jokes. Did you go to IKEA
jokes.
together? It's one of those fun things.
Well,
Anyway,
you never know. So the brook horse is actually really creepy. So clearly, I have a taste for the morbid. The brook horse is a horse that lives in bodies of water and lures in children. And for every rider he can get on his back, his spine gets longer, like he adds a vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also known to stand on just his hind legs, and sometimes is seen with human hands. And what's interesting, and this is something that I did not know until we were doing this podcast, is the horse in Frozen was actually based on the brook horse.
Oh, the water knock?
Yes, because Nook is another name for the brook horse.
My nieces love that movie, so both of them.
It's kind of fantastic.
Let it go.
Both of
Let
them.
it go.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry, Frozen 2.
Frozen 2.
Alta Holland and all of that.
Yeah.
It's still got Idina Menzel, so who cares, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
She can sing.
A little bit. My number 2 is this is for my final of the Nordic series. We have Loki outsmarts the ice giant, and turns into a horse, but he has unexpected consequences. Now I'm going to give the unexpected consequence. there's a long road that it takes why has to outsmart the ice giant. However, he turns into a horse, and so that the ice giant's horse follows him. And then they don't see Loki around for another like 9 months or a year because he's just gone. And then he comes back and he's got a young horse with him that won't ever leave him alone, and it's got 6 legs, kind of godlike. Yeah.
It's his
It's one of those things that make you say, Again, hilarious story, but I don't have time to really go into it. But that's the gist of it. Definitely read that one. Loki, I don't remember what the name would be. Just Loki turns into a horse. I think you'll find it.
Into a horse.
Okay, Courtney, what is your number 2, dear?
Number 2 is Pele creates the Hawaiian Islands. No, Pele, the goddess of fire and volcanoes, creates the islands and soccer. Basically, she and her sister, the goddess of the sea, and I cannot say her name because it's this long, massive Hawaiian.
And there's no vowels.
Not good at it.
Okay.
It's just not. I can't do it. Sorry. But she and her sister, the goddess of the sea, they're always fighting. Mm-hmm. And so her sister chases her from Vakanui, which is basically the Olympus or the Asgard for Hawaiian pantheon. So she chases her across the sea. And so finally, Pele finds a place to stop. And so she builds an island up, and that's the island of Kauai. Well, her sister finds her, they battle, and she chases her again. And so basically, it's all the islands are created as Pele runs away from her sister. And when she gets to the big island, she actually is safe because she builds up Kilauea, and she's able to protect herself because her sister can't get to her in Kilauea. And so that's where she lives now.
Very good.
You know, one of the things I love about that is how if you go to Hawaii, there's bits of like molten strings that look like hair. And it's called, I can't remember what it's made, what's melted to make that, but it's called Pele's hair.
Yeah, it's volcanic obsidian. There's a place on Maui. Yes. That's exactly what it is. It's volcanic obsidian. But I love there's a place on Maui that is literally called the Bones of Pele, and it is where she and her sister had a massive battle, and her sister basically tore her apart and scattered her bones across this caldera.
Interesting.
So
very cool. So tell me what's your number 2.
It's very cool.
My number 2 with some attitude was also Bly's actually had his as well. It was Pandora's box, but I'm going to add to it.
Please do.
Because so Pandora was given as a wife to Prometheus's brother as a gift from the gods, and Prometheus was like, dude, no, don't date her. And the brother was like, hey, she's hot, she's mine. And then she got that box. Now, in some cases, people can say that it's a cautionary tale about curiosity and a terrible, stereotype of women, and how women can't control their curiosity. But I actually think it's an homage to that desire for discovery and curiosity being a wonderful thing, because what happens when she opens the box? All of the bad stuff comes out, but what she closes the box, and what is left at the bottom of the box is hope. So, especially in a time like now, which just feels like somebody has opened that Pandora's box, what is left at the bottom is hope.
Very good. Wow, that was like hopeful.
Yes.
Okay, so
that's how I like to live.
My number 1, I just changed it the last second. It happens. So I'm going with Icarus flying too close to the sun.
That's a good one.
Everyone knows the story, so I don't really have to go into it. But it's such just every word of that story is poetry to me. That is the don't fly too close to the sun unless you're really prepared to go there. And there's something about that. It's not necessarily a bad thing that he flew too close. It's that he wasn't prepared to fly that close. So, there is a such thing as building up to things and to, you're not an expert at level 1, and that it's just a story that's always spoke to me. So okay, we're running out of time.
Good choice.
Fast.
I like it.
Courtney, what's your number 1?
Robin Hood. And I know it's not a mythology, but if you dig deep,
well, it's fake.
he relates. A lot of people believe that he is a Christianized version of Cernunnos, who is a Celtic horned god, who was known as the Green Man. Yeah, he relates back to the Green Man with his Celtic mythology. He relates back to Hearn, which is also another name for Cernunnos.
Everything's borrowed.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of people believe that those tales got their origin from those pagan mythology, and it just was converted to be Robin Hood as we know him.
I just want to hear you say his name again.
Cernunnos?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's something really satisfying about it.
So tell me what's your number 1.
Well, first, super quick, I want to correct myself on something I said earlier. I said that The Persians was the earliest recorded play. I said the wrong word. It's the earliest surviving play. So that's out there. My number 1 is, and I'm going super Greek here, is Dionysus and Ariadne. I've always been a fan of Dionysus. And the story goes, Ariadne was betrothed to Theseus. So Theseus was a poop head. And they were traveling to head back to Theseus's pad on the boat. And Ariadne was like, dude, I need a rest. I need a break. Let me take a nap. So they stop off on this island. She hops off to take a nap. She wakes up. That Yahoo has gone. He has skipped the building. So we don't like him.
It's amazing.
Oh my God. Love I just don't like him. He's terrible. Just don't know. I don't want you to marry him. So anyway, Dionysus is like, what did he do? She is amazing. So he takes her and has her come and live with him and with the gods and adores her. And then she dies. And so I'm sorry, right before then, he marries her, he gives her a crown, and she dies. And in his heartbreak, he takes her crown and he flings it into the sky, and it breaks apart. And each one of the jewels lodges itself in the sky as a star. And that is the Corona constellation. It's such a good story.
I don't know if you're actually crying now or not.
It's very emotional.
I'm very emotional. I can't help it.
I can't top any of that. So
I love it.
Call this
I love it.
Oh, thank you so much to Tommy for being on with us.
Yeah, thanks to Tommy.
Wherever you
so
are.
Fun. I
Thank
love you
Courtney.
guys.
We love you.
Yay, Courtney.
And we will see you guys next week. And until then, keep on geeking on.
Bye, everybody.
Keep on geeking on. Laters.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.